Accentuate the positive.
Always look on the bright side of
one bad movie at a time.
Welcome to Your Movie Rocks, an alternate ending podcast where all movies are great movies.
Even the Best Picture winners?
Wait, what? Someone's messing with my script over here. Maybe not especially the Best Picture winners, but all of them.
It depends. Several of them are quite bad.
Indeed they are. But no, we are positive here. They are all wonderful movies. It has been pointed out to me that I should probably introduce myself in addition to my guest hosts on this podcast. So I'm Mandy Albert. I do stuff around alternate ending. And my guest this month,
all right,
you probably already recognized if you've been listening to us for a while, but just in case you're joining us for the first time. Hi, Gavin.
Hi, it's me, Gavin McDowell, the monthly scribbler on all things religion and film. Back, I think the first repeat guest, somewhat against my will, and that what? I had a choice. I had a choice in the wings, and plenty of other people didn't even have ideas for punitive films, which is the only thing I think about most of the time. But yeah, I had this one in mind almost immediately after recording our last one. I thought next time I talk to Mandy, I'll give her this.
Okay.
I should clarify that this isn't really a punitive choice. We'll see about that. Yes and no, because like one of the embarrassing facts about you, Mandy, if I can air your dirty laundry.
Before you air my dirty laundry,
okay.
Again, just in case some people are joining us for the first time and we're not going to scare them off immediately, we're going to wait at least 2 minutes to do that. Let me tell you a little bit about how the show works. For every show, my guest assigns me a movie to watch and we discuss the movie, just like the 10,000 other movie podcasts you listen to, except that there's a catch. No matter what, I am only allowed to say nice things about the movie. My guests can say whatever they want, but me, only nice things. And furthermore, only sincere nice things. Not, I loved it when the director got fired and another director took over for the last 5% of the movie. If I have nothing nice to say, I'm lying because every movie does something right. Okay, Gavin, what movie are we bringing to the table this week?
Okay, right. So I was talking about dirty laundry. There are a few select extremely famous films that you, a movie lover, have not seen, and which I find unpardonable. And one of those is not the film we're discussing, and that's Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I just want to bring up again. I thought anyone could give Mandy Raiders of the Lost Ark. Only I would probably give you Lawrence of Arabia, the 1962 Best Picture film winner, along with 6 other Oscars, not including Best Actor. Generally not regarded as a bad film, but I thought, after giving you a film that I knew that you hated before going into it, I thought we should do something a little bit different. So instead of a historical epic about the Middle East, let's do Lawrence of Arabia instead. And it's, first to educate you, but also it's its own sort of punishment because. So
hang on.
Okay.
Are you telling me that this is your attempt to be nice?
Yes, it's both. Yes, it's reparations, but it's also punishment because this film is nearly 4 hours long, and it's a sausage fest. It famously has no speaking parts for women, which, take it or leave it. That's just how it is. There are plenty of ululating parts. We'll get to that. Well, we won't get to that because we only say nice things. So How
do you know I have nothing nice to say about that?
Right. Okay. So anyway, you're kind of volatile when it comes to you don't respect tradition or received opinions. So I also have no way of knowing if you actually like this movie or not. And I kind of like this film. It's in my top 4. So
I see. This was brave of you.
Yeah, extremely brave.
I guess not that brave because I am forced, regardless of what I thought of it, to just pretend it's my favorite movie in history for the next however long we end up talking about it.
Well, there's already precedent for giving you good movies, so I didn't feel terribly guilty about this. But next time I won't be. Next time would be punitive again. And also, there's very little about Lawrence of Arabia on the site. Tim has not reviewed it.
That is true. I actually looked this morning to see if he had reviewed it, not because I wanted to cheat, but just because I was curious whether there was a review on the site, and was kind of surprised to find that there wasn't one.
But I'll eat my shoe if he hasn't seen it. I have to.
He's seen it.
Okay. Well, that tracks. um, okay, so
If he hadn't, I feel like we would have heard about that particular scene at some point.
so there are films he has not seen, like Le Cercle Rouge, but that's not the subject for today. So let's get started.
Indeed. So I loved this movie, and it is impossible to, as Gavin chuckles nervously, and it is impossible to talk about this movie that we love without first getting to the star of the film. And by that, I am referring to the desert. So
It's clean.
It sure is. So the desert, I believe, is played by a few different deserts over the course of the filming, because Lawrence of Arabia had a notoriously troubled production that forced them to keep moving around to different deserts and filming locations that could sort of pass for the Middle East if you squint. And given that the desert is remarkably consistent in its appearance and its quality of being filmed, this is one incredible desert. It is, like you said, it's clean. Can you say a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Well, that's a quote from the film. So
fair enough.
So the
why do you love the desert? It's clean.
Asked Lawrence why you like the desert. It's clean. I asked him another question, which I can't remember now. It's already been a week since I rewatched this film, which I've seen 3 or 4 times in its entirety. And I don't remember what the other question was. He asked him some weird question.
There's some. This is, again, not an insult. There's some funky dialogue in this film.
It's quite memorable. There's lots of memorable dialogue, but some of it I've not remembered. So,
that is okay.
Some I remembered over the course of long periods of time. They specifically ask for lemonade when he gets back to the canteen.
Great
I don't
scene,
know.
By the way,
it is a great scene. It's okay. Anyway, desert. Yes, I have nothing really to add about the desert, except
well, we need to talk about the desert more, because I'm not done with the desert. So
yes, okay, go ahead.
The movie that I kept thinking of as I was watching this, and this is also relevant to recent podcast happenings, is I kept thinking of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, in part because they are both extremely long, but also because large portions of them are dedicated to the extreme hostility of a hostile landscape. But where The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly's desert is like, it is extremely energetic and raw, and you get the sense that it may just consume you at any second. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is an exhausting movie to watch. I love it, but it's not one that I'm eager to race out and watch again. Lawrence of Arabia is not exhausting. The desert in Lawrence of Arabia is not exhausting. It is vast, but it's so still, and it's so sharp, and it's so cruel is almost the right word for it, but it's a distant, cold kind of cruelty.
I will say that the desert, I guess, lends itself to being like a repetitive landscape that you could get tired of seeing the desert. But I agree with you here. I think it's
I did not ever
consistently
once get tired.
Yes, it's a consistently visually interesting film. And as it does a lot of things in the desert, especially their trek across from close to Medina up to Aqaba, which is like walking straight up alongside the Red Sea toward the place where Jordan meets Israel, is where Aqaba is. It's the first part of the film. That is a harrowing watch, especially
I'm kicking myself right now, because I meant to open this with a joke about how you had me watch a 4-hour documentary about camels.
Right. Well, that's.
But I'm going to tell that joke now, and it's still going to be funny. Everybody, please obediently laugh. Because there's a lot of walking around on camels in this movie. But the thing is, every time we went somewhere else, like anytime we were hanging out in the stuffy British Officers Club or in Cairo, I would start kind of itching to get back to the desert.
I guess I find the geopolitics. Actually, the geopolitics might be the favorite part of this film, which can be watched on many levels. I guess I should start by saying, unlike with most films, I did not do much research this time around. If I had had the time, I would have read Lawrence's own memoirs.
Geopolitics being your favorite part, both like momentarily surprises me and then also does not surprise
at all.
Me.
Well, it got me interested. It's actually the film that got me interested in the geopolitics of the Middle East. Is I watched this in college when Notre Dame was doing kind of like, they had just built a gigantic performing arts center, and they were screening 100 influential and important films, which included Lawrence of Arabia. So I got to see this for the first time on a big screen, which is how it should be seen, along with a number of other great films, including like Ron and Ben-Hur, and also for some reason, Birth of a Nation, which caused some controversy on campus, but this one did not. It could have.
I mean,
But
I
it
bet
did
Birth
not.
of a Nation is incredible to see on a big screen.
Well, if you're going to watch it at all, it should be on the big screen. But Lawrence of Arabia was a much better watch there. And I thought the Sykes, speaking of geopolitics, the Sykes-Picot Treaty had a bigger part to play in the story. And it comes up in only one scene where a character explains it to Lawrence like he's 5, which I guess is one way to explain, a very dated. It was.
I mean, I appreciated that.
You appreciated that.
I needed it explained to me like I was 5.
Well, I thought the entire movie was about Sykes-Picot, but it's not. So, but it got me very interested in the Sykes-Picot Treaty, which I imagine I'll have to explain to the audience like they're 5 at some point, but it's not really germane to most of the story. Which, it's kind of like a film in its own sequel. It's like it could be read as a standard white messiah, narrative.
Well, it is a 150 movie, then followed by a short break, and then followed by a 90-minute movie.
I would say, yeah, that's exactly right. The first 150-minute film is, a white messiah narrative, like generic crap like Avatar, and then you have the sequel to that, like what happens when your messiahship goes to your head and you go completely bonkers. And
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
That's interesting.
I think that there are at least shades of what is to come, even in the 150-minute relatively traditional part.
Okay.
Because the main character, and we're going to get to this in depth, is such a weirdo, even in the beginning. However, this thing is happening right now where you have been talking about other things, and they are quite interesting, and yet a similar phenomenon with the film is happening where I wish to return to the desert, at least briefly, and talk a little bit more about the desert. There's a sequence, I tried not to do a ton of research on this because if I am repeating the same things that everybody has said about Lawrence Arabia since 1962, I don't necessarily want to know that I am repeating those things. But there is a sequence in the first 150-minute part of the movie that I'm sure is extremely famous and for good reason. And it's the sequence where Lawrence turns around after they've crossed the Nafud Desert to go back and rescue Qasim.
Yes.
And that's kind of the moment where he earns everybody's respect and becomes the de facto leader of his little ragtag, thank you, ragtag band of soldiers that he picked up from Faisal. And there's this, the other star of this movie is the editor, Ann V. Coates. There's this sequence that is largely just shots of the desert with specks that eventually turn into human beings. But then it goes back and forth between shots of the sun as the sun travels through the sky. And first of all, the sky just looks incredible in this movie. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen a sky in real life that is quite that, like, painful shade of blue that shows up. And I was just watching this on my TV at home. I was not seeing it in a movie theater, so I can't even imagine what it looks like in a movie theater. But you feel that sun beating down, and it hurts. And you feel it even before you see that that both Qasim and Lawrence are kind of knocking at death's door there. I would say that you feel it more before you see them, because back in the 60s, occasionally film directors understood that the things that you don't see are more powerful than the things that you do see. And so what is happening to the people who are unfortunate enough to be wandering through this vast and cruel landscape is left up to the imagination, and the imagination can do some pretty scary things when confronted with that.
Right. I guess my favorite shot of the desert is when you see Qasim. I think he fell off his camel. Yeah. At some point, someone falls off their camel and they faint, and then you see him walking as they're traveling through the desert at night, and they have to make it through before daybreak, and he's still in the desert.
Because then the sun does those things.
Yeah, you see the gigantic sun and Qasim's poor silhouette against it. And he's kind of wandering aimlessly, which he has. I mean, what else can you do? If you have any hope of survival, you have to move or you're going to die. And they basically give him up for dead, and Lawrence goes back to save him.
And he is explicitly told that he will also die if he goes back to save him.
And spoiler, they both live.
Yeah, like we know
they
he's
both-
not going to because this happens only about 80 minutes into the 4-hour movie. But
Is that really how long it? Wow, it's like because the thing is, I
Gavin, this movie's really long. I don't know.
it is really no, it's really long. But if like I watch it, it did not feel.
No, the amazing
This
thing
film
is that
moves. It moves. It feels long, but it doesn't feel like you've spent an entire afternoon watching a movie.
I have seen, and I can name them, 87-minute movies that felt longer than this 217-minute movie.
Right. You had mentioned like shots of people like specks in the desert. You kind of skipped over one of the most famous sequences is when
Well,
they're
let's talk about it now then.
well, yeah, the well. Okay, so like Lawrence initially is given a guide to take him to meet Faisal. As like he goes from Cairo to the Arabian Peninsula, and then the guide comes and he goes to a well that belongs to another tribe, and he's not supposed to be drinking at the well. And then they see someone on the horizon, and it's like an agonizing wait for the person on the horizon to arrive. And it's Omar Sharif. You won't know that for a long time. After which some things happen. There's some misunderstandings. Some people get murdered.
Yes, it is legendary bridge champion Omar Sharif, who it turns out also moonlighted as an actor from time to time, and was reasonably good at it. Though maybe not as good as he was a bridge player. At one point, he was ranked among the top 50 bridge players in the world.
That's an interesting fun fact. He is an Egyptian actor, which I feel is notable as perhaps the most famous Arab in this movie called Lawrence of Arabia.
An Egyptian actor of Lebanese descent.
Right. Okay. So that's close. That's close enough. So, but that's
they also had a lot of Jordanian soldiers as extras.
Right. Compared to some of the other name actors that will appear, but that his introduction is quite important. Introduces an important theme of the film is whether the Arabs can sufficiently unite again to overthrow. I guess we forgot to mention the plot. The actual plot of this film is that we are.
Who cares?
Well, it's October. It was like I remember Carrie once when talking about Lawrence of Arabia. Thought it took place in Arabian times. Air quotes. It takes place in
Arabian times.
I asked Carrie. Anyway, I believe it opens in 1916. I think they say it's October of 1916. So it is World War I in the middle of the British campaign. I don't think the Americans have entered the war yet. They wouldn't have by 1916. And this is the campaign. Well, it's like the Arab Revolt. So the main villains are not the Germans, but the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, which is basically had control of the entire Middle East. They had recently lost Egypt to the British, and by recently I mean 40 years prior to the film, as compared to the 400 years before that. And the Arabs were tired of living under Turkish dominion, and there was a push to create an independent state with a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad in the role of the governor. That would be the Sharif is a title of honor to a descendant of Muhammad. And I think the House of Saud they had control of the holy places. They had briefly lost it. And you have these other interlopers that are not the House of Saud is not related to, who had attempted to overthrow the Turks at Medina, and that went very badly because the Turks have big guns and they had swords and sticks, and they were routed pretty easily. So the British are sending in Lawrence to try to basically create this fifth column that will help them overtake the Turks.
Though in the film, I don't know if this was true in real life. In the film, that is the stated reason for sending Lawrence there. The real reason they are sending Lawrence there is to get rid of him because he is a weird embarrassment to everybody on his original base in Cairo.
Right. So I guess one of the things one of the other stars of this film is Peter O'Toole. In addition to the dancer and the editor, I believe this was
who was an unknown at this point, right?
Was this his debut?
Yes,
it was his break.
I think he'd been in like a very small part in one or two other films, but he was primarily a stage actor in minor roles. And yeah, when you watch the opening credits, it's introducing Peter O'Toole as T.E. Lawrence.
Right, and he first of all he looks like T.E. Lawrence. So incredible casting in this way, and
He
also
really
incredible
was.
casting because he's a very good actor. Who?
Can we talk a little bit before we get to him about the
Oh,
opening credits? Because the
right.
opening
Okay.
credits was such a surprise to me.
Well, before you get to the opening credits, you have to listen to 5 minutes of this very good film score.
Oh my God. We thought our TV was broken.
You know what? My DVD actually warns you. It says there will not be any.
The Amazon version had warned us.
There will be no screen images during the opening. Oh, what do you call it? It's like during the opening music,
Like
nor
the
during the
overture?
intermission. There will be no images during the overture or the entr'acte or right before the final credits. So don't break your TV. Don't try to fix your TV.
We seriously thought our TV was broken. And then Jack, my husband, who was watching this with me, finally Googled it and determined that our TV was not, in fact, broken. Also, fun fact, Josh and I both erroneously believed that Laurence Olivier was in this for no other reason than that
it's called Lawrence of Arabia.
He was at one point supposed to be in it. He was the original choice for Faisal.
Faisal! I was going to say, don't tell me they're going to cast another white man as Faisal. Jesus Christ.
Okay,
well,
here's the thing. Like, yes, I know if you were making this movie today, which nobody would, because who the heck is going to make a movie like this today? James Cameron might, but barring him, if you were going to make this movie today, you would try to cast like ethnically correct actors in the role. But given the movie that exists, I'm kind of like, who gives a shit? Like, who is not Alec Guinness do you want in this role? Who would have done the same thing for the role that Alec Guinness did?
Look, there is a 90s TV movie called Lawrence After Arabia, which is about the Paris Peace Conference. And it stars Ray Fiennes as T. Lawrence in his debut. And Faisal is played by Alexander Siddig. So I know you're a big...
born in 1962?
Look, his portrayal of Faisal is quite different from Alec Guinness's, not just because it's ethnically correct. That is a film that's... Are
you saying that you recommend it or you don't?
It depends. How gay do you like your movies? Because that movie is very gay. And it implies that Lawrence and Faisal were definitely more into each other than they are in this movie, where it's very cold. Like Alec Guinness's Prince Faisal, I think one person on Letterboxd said that Guinness's racist performance was better than Alex Siddig's. So that's kind of mean. That's not fair. He's Alec Guinness, but yeah, he's very cold and standoffish.
He's Alec Guinness.
He's cold and standoffish, but also, gives his character an air of dignity about it. So
he also looks like Faisal, despite the,
brown face
he got there.
But I absolutely would believe that. I mean, I'm about to review Gods of Egypt for my column, and that's less than 10 years ago, where they deliberately did not cast anyone that looked remotely Egyptian, but not a historical drama. So
well, that's a choice. Okay,
maybe you can get away with it. Well, they didn't really get away with it. Anyway, yeah, I believe this film could still be made today, but not as good. There's more to films than ethnically correct casting, and I don't think Faisal's
has been made a few times today. It's called Dances with Wolves, and it's called Avatar. And
right.
There are elements that they forget when they're remaking Lawrence of Arabia. But we can talk about those in a little while, because right now we're still talking about Lawrence of Arabia and how it is great.
Right. So
and
Faisal's not the real problem. Okay, we'll get to the problem later. Right. So
didn't really touch Peter O'Toole in this role.
Well, we're still getting to the opening credits. Okay, so
in the opening credits,
you will learn that Laurence Olivier is not in this film. But you do start in England, and that's arresting. A lot of
elder statesmen are in this film, but the actual opening credits are filmed in a bird's eye view over a guy setting up his motorcycle to go out for a joyride, which is not how I was expecting, given the things that I knew about it, Lawrence of Arabia, to open. And then the entire opening sequence is a man whom you will later determine is T.E. Lawrence going for his extremely fast joyride on his motorcycle, at the end of which he crashes and dies.
Yeah.
The movie starts. Everything is the complete opposite from the way it is when we get into the bulk of the movie. Everything moves very fast. Everything is very green. The road before him on his motorcycle, which he is riding way too fast, which you realize from the moment he gets on it. absolutely speeds by. It looks warm and inviting, and like we're about to go on, a movie about some exciting journey where you come to know yourself, which I guess we are, but not quite in the typical way that you think we're going to. And then he comes across a couple of bikers in the road, swerves to avoid them, and lands in a tree. And it's such a kind of dose of cold water to begin the movie, which, if you know absolutely anything about it, you're not expecting this, but I think it's actually a really good way to prepare you for what is about to come in the desert, where everything is so still and slow and vast and defined by these very clear lines and colors and shapes and occasional ululations.
Well,
It's a cool opening.
There's another aspect to the opening as well, is that you see his funeral and people talking about him, all who are major characters in the desert part of the film. It's kind of like, it's like the intro to The Wizard of Oz, where you see the characters of one situation, then you'll see them again later. And it includes like important characters like General Allenby and the journalist is a fictional
Bentley,
stand-in. Yeah, Bentley, a fictional stand-in for a real journalist, and even Dr. Outrageous, who you won't see till the very end when he says his famous line. And things like that.
He was in the opening, wasn't he? I didn't even notice that.
So it's just so it's a nice inclusio, is that Bentley says so they're talking about who is this guy, which is kind of the theme of the movie.
And you can tell that nobody likes him.
Well, they don't know what to think about him. It's like, who are you? It's also a line from midway through the film where a guy literally yells at him, "Who are you?" But you have Bentley, who gives some kind of generic quote to the press, and then he says to another guy, like, he's the most shameless self-promoter I ever did see. And then Dr. Outrageous stops and he goes, "Excuse me, sir, I take great objection to what you just said. I shook his hand. He was a very nice fellow." And when you see the character reemerge later, it's steeped in irony.
Yes.
But we'll save that to the very, very end.
Oh my God, that was the doctor, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh, that's funny. This is a funny movie too. I wasn't expecting it to be as funny as it was.
And then you get to see what Lawrence was actually like, and you learn pretty much right away that it's kind of weird. I don't know what he is not. T. Lawrence was not heterosexual. I don't know what he is, but he wasn't that. He claimed to be asexual. But he was definitely,
David Lean and Robert Bull definitely portrayed him as being quite gay for Sharif Ali.
Yes, okay, that's okay. So movie Lawrence is gay as fuck. Real Lawrence claimed to be asexual. He has effeminate manners, has a weird way of speaking, and you'd think that he would fit right in with the British military, but he does not.
There's a scene after he gets his Arabian clothes.
Oh my God! Yeah, and he plays dress up, and he's dancing around.
Dress up, and he looks at himself in a mirror made of his dagger, and that's the moment when it's like, okay, David Lean is going for a certain portrayal of this character right now.
But yes, he does not fit in with the British military. He has insubordination problems, and he doesn't do things on time. And whoever was there before Allenby didn't like him at all. So that's why that's why the movie happens.
The thing that I appreciate, though, is that aside from the very beginning at the funeral scene, when nobody quite knows what to do with him, except that they're pretty sure that they, didn't love him and wanted him to be far away from them most of the time, is that his weirdness is very rarely commented on. Like, other things about him are commented on, obviously, like as he, goes down his slide into anti-heroism. But his effeminate manner and his obvious, crush on Sharif Ali and his general way of being in the world are just simply allowed to exist. People don't feel the need to debate them.
It is an interesting choice. Is that if you choose not to see it, you can. I just want to think this is just a movie about a great war hero. For some reason, his sexuality disturbed. There's nothing really. It's not really a sexual movie. Like I don't know.
No, I mean, among
I went back. I thought maybe there was something between Lawrence and the two boy servants that he has, but it's there's plausible deniability. You have no clue
No, I think
if
he's
there's any heat there.
I think he's the third wheel with the two of them.
I
Like
see.
he's a very accepted third wheel, and they clearly, love him. I got the sense of as a father figure or maybe an older brother figure, but those two have clearly been an item since they became desert urchins together.
Well, he's not. This is not a horny movie, or I would not say
No.
it's one, unless you're horny for the desert.
No, the
And
desert is
that's
not an environment that lends itself to horniness.
and the one thing that might qualify as a
There's a
sex
lot of
scene. I'm not
sand.
even. Well, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. Don't want to talk about was there a
I'm a
sex
little
scene or not.
afraid of what it is that you mean by what you just said. I think I
You know.
know,
I think you know what I mean. I think you know what
and
I
I
mean.
am
That's in the second.
apprehensive.
That's in the second half of the movie.
Indeed.
Uh,
Indeed,
we,
I know. But before we get there, I want to stay in the realm of the warm fuzzies for a little bit because I love Faraj and Daoud. And from
right.
the moment that Lawrence took them on as like his little, servants slash proteges slash adopted children, I was like, something terrible is going to happen to you, and I'm going to be really sad when it does.
Were you sad?
I was so sad.
Okay. Well, I guess should we go into spoiler territory for
This
this
podcast
extremely
is
famous
spoiler
movie?
territory.
Right. Well, they don't get too attached to Faraj and Daoud.
Especially don't get too attached to Daoud because they don't die at the same time. Daoud dies earlier.
No, poor Daoud. That's such a terrible way to go.
I know.
He gets quicksand during one of the. Right. Sorry, there's so many great scenes in this
And
movie,
it's
and that's
especially
toward the
terrible
end of
because
part one.
after the Gassim rescue, you had already seen him and Faraj have one little joyful reunion together. And for a moment, the movie lets you believe that that's going to be it. Like, he's proven himself as a man, and that's all he has to do to avoid death for the rest of the movie. But no, there will be tragedy.
Oh, it's right after Lawrence's great triumph. The first part of the movie is focusing on taking of Aqaba, which is strategically important. As if they can overcome the Turks there, then the British can send more supplies to Faisal and his revolutionaries, and also the British.
Then he has to go to Cairo to collect more bribes for Anthony Quinn.
Right. Wait.
Everything.
Right. The other thing is that General Allenby will have a straight shot to Jerusalem, so it's strategically important on two counts. We have not talked about Anthony Quinn yet. I guess this is the time since he's critical to the taking of Aqaba. Anthony Quinn is a very interesting character actor in that he seems to have been cast like. He was like the guy you wanted to cast if you needed someone who is Mediterranean, so of vague Mediterranean ethnicity.
Except he's Mexican, but
except he's Mexican and partly Irish. So apparently swarthy enough to play Zorba the Greek famously, and he's also in The Message, which is the big epic movie about the Prophet Muhammad. He is the character.
Did he also play Barabbas at one point?
Yes, he did. So he could be Jewish, he could be Greek, he could be Arab, as he is here. If he's I don't know.
They gave him the fake schnoz to end all fake schnozzes.
Right. So he plays Auda, who is the head of a tribe that the Turks have been paying them off to leave them alone.
The Howittats, which if I did not know that was a real thing, I would have thought Frank Herbert made it up.
Right, and I think he is possibly the most offensive element of this film. He's kind of stereotypically.
Oh come now, he's great fun.
He's fun. No, he gets some of the purplest. He has two famous lines in his first meeting with Lawrence. Or the first, he says, "You trouble me like women," when they're trying to get him to agree.
Incredible speech about his 23 wounds.
Yeah, and he ends that scene by saying, "Thy mother mated with a scorpion," which is one of the few times women are even mentioned or even acknowledged in this film. And he is puzzled by the modern world, and he fights with a sword. Does he ever use a gun? It's kind of very traditional, prickly, difficult to deal with. Once real money, which means like gold bullion and not paper money, and I'm not sure if he's like a one-to-one, like if he's a fictionalized version of a real person or if there's actually an Auda in the Seven Pillars of Wisdom. This is where I wish I had done more research.
There was a Wikipedia hyperlink to the name of the character, but I never followed it when I was doing my very surface level research.
So yeah, it's a Mexican actor wearing a fake nose. So possibly more offensive than Alec Guinness and brownface.
But like, I
Maybe
realize I
not.
don't have any authority to speak on whether or not this is offensive. I'm looking at this character and going, how can you be offended by this? He's the most fun part of the movie. He's clearly having such a great time, which, given how this production went, I'm glad somebody was having a great time. And he adds a surprising level of depth to this character who could just be a large ham surrounded by more large ham.
Yes. Yes, he gets a lot of great grandstanding speeches, and he appears at critical moments in the film. I think a lot of his best material is in the second part, though. The charge in Aqaba, like the charge itself, is incredible, and the big thing is that they cannot take it. They cannot take Aqaba by sea because the Turks have their guns trained on it. They expect it, and so they take it by land. And it's not really much of a battle scene if you're accustomed to big battle scenes. Seeing them rush into the city, it's like swarming ants again. It's like they swarm into the city. They take it very easily. A little
like the scene that I did genuinely like in a movie that I hated called Agora, I guess, where the Christians sack the Library of Alexandria.
It's a bit like this, except this time it makes a point of showing you the big useless guns pointing in the wrong direction.
Which I laughed out loud when that happened.
The Turks cannot do anything to stop this. You don't see a whole lot of infighting. You get the sense that it was quite, well, thanks to people like Aldo, it was quite bloody. And Lawrence complains about it later. It's like the first time you get a big battle scene, and you're almost 2.5 hours into the film.
There is extraordinarily little blood in the movie, though. I assume in part for practical concerns, because they probably wanted a PG rating. But it also means that when you do see blood, it's really effective.
Right. I don't think
the only time you see a lot of blood, and even then it's not like blood spurting out of people, it's blood in the aftermath, is in the final battle siege curb stomp of sorts, when Lawrence makes his final transition into, anti-hero territory.
No prisoners. Right.
And looks at his reflection in a bloody dagger instead of a pristine dagger from earlier.
You do see blood before that, and that is
some, but it's just not in large quantities. Given parts, it's a war movie.
You see it on his back after he's been tortured.
You don't see it during the torturing, though. It's always the aftermath of things.
Well, it's the aftermath. It's when it's important, because he's making a report to Jerusalem now. They moved from Cairo to Jerusalem about how well that's he wants to report that things are going swell, but Faisal is there complaining about the Sykes-Picot Treaty, which I guess I have to explain now. And then his superiors notice that Lawrence is bleeding. So I guess we can transition at least to the second part of the film, which is more
we've been jumping around like crazy, and we're still going to jump around like crazy.
Yes, we have to, I guess. It's hard to keep on track. There's so many things to discuss about this film. The second part is jumping around. Lawrence has like a crack team of raiders, basically, who disrupt the train lines and steal the supplies, which they are quite good at. But the thing is, they're kind of like seasonal workers, and they leave. They leave as soon as they get their big clocks. It's like Aldo gets his big clock, and he goes home with it. Well, he wants a horse because he doesn't understand how clocks work, so he wants a horse instead. But he gets his horse, and he goes home. And Lawrence is starting to think that he's hot shit. You see him dancing around in his robe again, survived being shot, and eventually he is ordered to take this Turkish stronghold in Dara, which is in modern day Syria, but he has no one to go with him. So he gets Omar
This does not trouble him at all. And the fact that it does not trouble him at all is how you know there's going to be trouble there.
He takes Omar Sharif with him, and he believes that he could just waltz in there and that he'll be invisible, like he has a cloak of invisibility. He's immediately arrested by the Turks, who don't recognize him. This is the only time you really get the Turks as like a presence. Like they're just kind of like they're the bad guys, but you don't have like an official. There's no emperor. There's no Darth Vader. There's like, you don't see any single Turkish commanders or generals or anything that fight against Lawrence. And this is the only time he comes face to face with the Turkish official who is not.
Because this is when famous Puerto Rican Turk Jose Ferrer shows up to take over the movie for 5
He
minutes.
does look like a Turk, though. He looks like a Turk, but he's not interested in prisoners. He wants a fuckboy.
He played a few Middle Eastern characters in his time too. This is very embarrassing, but the thing that I can most immediately name Jose Ferrer for is that he provides the voice for one of the evil ethnic stereotypes in the Rankin Bass Little Drummer Boy.
Is he? He's the Emperor in Dune.
He's Ben Harriman. He's the Emperor in Dune?
Yeah, the OG Dune, the 1984 one.
The David Lynch Dune?
Yeah, the David Lynch Dune.
Oh. I don't think well, obviously I didn't know that. But I don't think that even registered with me. Okay, fascinating.
Right. So this is what we talked about. Is this a sex scene or not? As they do, Lawrence doesn't stand.
God. Can we not call it a sex scene regardless?
Well, he's tortured and then he's released. But I thought
term sex scene has certain implications of the mood surrounding.
Well, okay, I don't know if he was raped or not. I thought he walked a little funny. I have memories of him walking funny afterwards, but I don't know if that's just because he was tortured.
It is strongly implied
that he was raped. Okay. So, and that's why he has blood on his back when he goes to see his superiors, who are telling him, by the way, Lawrence, we're not going to grant the Arabs nationhood. We're going to divide the Middle East into 2 parts, and it's going to be British and French, which is kind of the origin story for the modern Middle East, which I've written about in my column on, what was that movie? Ensemble. So I don't really.
Was it only one movie?
Well, it'll probably come up again. I don't really want to talk about it anymore. It's just when I talk about modern day Syria, it means that the state of Syria does not exist yet. You just have undifferentiated Ottoman territory that will be carved up into 5 or 6 countries after this film ends. And Faisal is really upset about it. Lawrence is upset about it. And
Faisal eventually sort of comes to terms with it, though, much more than Lawrence does.
Real Faisal didn't come to terms with it so easily.
Okay, but we're talking about movie Faisal.
Okay. The thing is, they're heading toward Damascus. Well, like Lawrence wants to give up, actually. I think he wants to give up at this point. And there are multiple points where he wants to give up, and the British are like, but we need you to do this. It's like, well, I'll do it before you guys. I was like, I'll do it first and I'll do it better. Like on a dime. He wants to take Damascus. And the significance of Damascus is that it was the capital of the first great Arab empire, the Umayyads. And Faisal wants to establish that of his capital of a free Arab state. And that's why they want to go there. And of course, it would also basically remove the Turks. The Turks would have to retreat into Asia Minor. And if you don't know your history, the Ottoman Empire did collapse and no longer exists because of events portrayed in this film. But even then, like the European intentions, they get kind of mixed up, because I think at one point it's a Bentley. He's interviewing Faisal and he says, you guys are helping us. You're going to help us beat the Germans. And he goes, excuse me, I mean the Turks. So the Ottoman Empire is just kind of the roadblock. The roadblock to beating the Germans in World War I. And they don't really care much about Arab statehood or, really the Ottomans, to be honest. And that's where, I guess, in terms of like action scenes in this movie, you have Aqaba and then you have the trains blowing up, which I really like. Yeah. I think they're really fun. I think it's really fun to see trains get blown up, although it's kind of a slaughter. You see, it's not really a fair fight.
And then you have Lawrence's revenge battle on the Turks.
Right. So like the Turks are, I think they're trying to leave Damascus, or they're trying to go somewhere else. They're leaving from, they don't look like an army that's ready for war. And Lord stumbles upon him and he shouts, "No prisoners!" And then you see like a wholesale
capital T trauma at this point.
Yeah, a wholesale slaughter of people who can scarcely defend themselves. And Lawrence, who has shown kind of a taste for bloodshed, first when he tells his superiors that he was forced to kill a man because of reasons against his will, but then he admits, "I liked it." And then you see it again when they're gunning down the people on the train, and then you see him shoot a guy close to point blank range who is unarmed. And that usually doesn't happen in films of this sort.
I will argue though that you start to see signs of it very early on. And I think
yes.
I think you start to see signs of it even when Lawrence himself is at his greatest moments of protestation that this is not who he is and this is not what he is like, including at the well scene where he meets Sharif Ali and initially dismisses Ali as a total barbarian because he killed this guy for using his well. But there's something in Peter O'Toole's eyes that suggests that all he says, that suggests that the gentleman may protest too much in this case, because he's clearly fascinated by Ali in a way that he's not going to admit. So I don't know that he necessarily likes the killing and bloodshed at this point, but it is clearly a source of intrigue for him. He does not seek to get away from it, and in fact, he seeks to move toward it.
Right. It's weird because I really didn't pick up on him being, I mean, the friendship with Ali, yes, but I didn't think of him as being romantically interested in him. I suppose it's there, but I didn't really think about it while I was watching the film. In terms of his bloodlust, I don't feel like it really comes up before he is obliged to shoot a man in order to prevent a blood feud from breaking out between the various tribes he's assembled. And he doesn't just shoot him, he unloads a whole freaking gun into him. And that's the death he admits later that he enjoyed.
That's the first time that the seeds begin to sprout their bloody roots, but you see the seeds being sown very early on.
And then from there, he seems to be caught up more in the whole details of war. It's just that his entry in Damascus is not a triumph at all, which is not how I think he would have portrayed it in his own memoirs. As this was supposed to be, this is like the great victory that his private army had in defeating the Turks as their entry into Damascus before the British. And here it's portrayed as a Pyrrhic victory. They win, but they've killed a bunch of unarmed people, and their occupation.
The movie knows that this is supposed to be the point of his great victory. Like we are approaching that point in the story, so we have it, but it's tainted.
It's very tainted, and then immediately the Arabs start going on infighting, which I don't know how much this tracks on history. It's not a very good look. This is where Auda gets to,
Anthony Quinn.
Anthony Quinn, yes, he gets to choose some scenery as he yells at
it's so
Omar Sharif as they complain about who's responsible for the water, and it makes them look like cavemen, which is not. Faisal was kicked out by the French. It's not because
of infighting. Arguing over a toy.
Yeah, it's what it sounds like here, and I would be more interested in reading up on what happens here. It basically shows that he got to Damascus, but these people are too tribalistic and I hate to say it, but primitive is how it portrays them.
Honestly, as I was watching this, I was like, okay, yes, this is how government works. This is basically what I imagine the day-to-day functions of the United States Congress to look like.
And there's like a fire breaks out, and they need to beg the British to help them put it out. And then Lawrence it really hits home for Lawrence when he visits the hospital, the makeshift hospital where you have Turkish prisoners just kind of lying out in the sun. Yeah, and that's where you see, and yeah, it's a great scene because who shows up but Dr. Outrageous. Outrageous!
Now got scenery chewing.
And then he uses an old timey British ethnic slur that I've only ever heard in old movies. I queried an AI about it, and he assures me that in British and Australian English, it's quite current and offensive, so I won't say it. But like they use it about
kind of Australian, doesn't it?
It occurs about 4 or 5 times in this movie, but most prominently here, where Lawrence is mistaken for an Arab and he's called this. Begins with a W if you want to look it up. And then later, once he's all cleaned up, he meets Dr. Outrageous again, and that's when he shakes his hand and thanks him for all his hard work. So this reminds me of have you seen the movie Volcano?
Yes.
There is an idiotic race allegory at the end of that. Like,
there is.
Everyone is covered in ash, and the boy observes everyone looks the same. It's kind of like that. It's just that because he's covered in dirt and grime, he now looks like.
It's very funny because it's not as though Peter O'Toole is unrecognizable when he's wearing his chic robes.
He's trying to fit in with, he's trying to find his own people. And
he wears them very well. After the camels, he certainly has the best costume in the movie.
And then,
the camels had great costumes.
He's associated with them in the worst way possible. And then he goes home with his tail between his legs, and rather incredible endings. Like, how do you end a movie that begins with the main character dying?
With a motorcycle. You end it
And
with
then
a motorcycle.
you see him in like being courted, like escorted home, and he's very glum and sad looking. You see a truck of like soldiers like singing joyfully, and then you see a motorcycle. It's like you're going to continue living, but your life is over, which is basically what happened to the real T. Lawrence. He wanted to keep a low profile after his adventures. I believe he served in the army still, but at a very low rank. And of course, he wrote his memoirs, which he then lost on a train, and then he rewrote them. Then he rewrote them from scratch.
Oh wow!
And I understand the Seven Pillars of Wisdom is actually quite a long book, and there's an abridgment of it that I've been tempted to inflict on my book club, but I want them to actually read the books that I
now's the time.
That's that's to advertise it. I run a book club out of our Discord, so you can click the banner on your right, and we take turns picking books that were adapted into movies. And I don't know if this was adapted.
Been dying to read the Seven Pillars of Wisdom.
Well, it would have to be Revolt in the Desert. That's the name of the abridgment.
Oh, fine.
So it is like 700 pages long. It's as long as the movie.
This would be like reading before bedtime.
I know that his Lawrence's brother did not like this movie, but families rarely like the movies that adapt.
I can't blame him for that, because it's not like it's an overall like. It does not dislike Lawrence, but like basically everybody else in the movie, it isn't quite sure what to think of him at any given time. And Peter O'Toole's brilliant but also whack-ass performance does not help in that regard. And that's a good thing, by the way.
I like what an enigma Lawrence is. There was a biography of him called Hero, which makes the entry into Damascus sound like the greatest victory in military history. And I thought, like, I don't know, like, you could say that the film condemns Lawrence, but I don't feel like it does.
No, it doesn't. Again, it just lets him be.
He's not a hero either, and he's really a morally ambiguous character who wanted to do a great thing for the Arabs and like fucked it up.
There were so many easier ways that they could have made this movie. They could have made it shorter. They could have focused on one element of the campaign instead of the entire campaign. They could have made Lawrence a straightforward hero. They could have basically done only the first 150-minute portion. They could have not done the hour and a half that is just shots of the desert to establish, look, guys, the desert is really big and a scary place to find yourself lost in. And they didn't do any of those things. And doing any of those things would have been to the film's detriment. And not having crazy, unknown, alcoholic Peter O'Toole with his striking blue eyes and his pretty chiseled face.
Oh my God, his eyes.
Because he looks like a Ken doll.
Wonderful, wonderful eyes.
But like he has this, especially when he's kind of losing it in the scenes where or even just when he's thinking really hard, he has this way of opening his eyes really wide and carrying all his tension in his jaw that makes you think that maybe not that he's about to explode, but that there's a current running through him. Like it was a gamble to cast, him in particular in such a load-bearing role, but it really paid off. And then he lost the Oscar to Gregory Peck.
That's for which film? Remind me.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh yeah, okay, fine.
Which what were they to do that year? You can't fault.
I'm sorry. I'm going to be pissed about that for the rest of my life.
This movie won no acting Oscars.
That's quite astounding. It did win 7, I believe. I'm not sure what the other 6 were. The music must have won.
The music must have won something. I know it won Best Picture and I know it won Best Editing.
Okay,
so it was the real star, Anne V. Coates, got her due.
Well,
you said there were no starring roles. Well, no, you said there were no speaking roles for women, and that remains true. But there was definitely a starring role for a woman, and I'm sure some of the camels were ladies.
I
love the camels. I haven't gotten to talk enough about the camels. There's a scene during the crossing of the Nafud where the camels are walking over a bunch of rocks and making sad camel noises that I think might have been the first time the movie made me tear up a little.
Oh,
and
I like watching
are mean sons of bitches normally, so that was impressive.
I like watching them run. You don't see camels run very often in film, and they run in this one.
Anybody who thinks I take real notes on the movies that I watch is about to be stripped of that illusion right now, because my notes on the movies say such things as camels go bouncy bouncy.
Oh,
I can't tell whether you like this or hate it.
No, I was just trying to get back to, at some point I was going to say that I'm drawn to films about World War I just because of the moral ambiguity of that war as something that could have been, that seems entirely needless and
It's certainly a great way to revel in lots
wasteful.
of nastiness.
And it's a war that really made the modern world. It demolished so many of the old political systems. You had the Austrian-Hungarian Empire collapsing. It's the end of the Habsburgs. No more Ottoman Empire, which had been a fixture for 500 years. Creation of modern states. China's imperial system collapsed about the same time. Iran's government changed at about the same time. And it just, I mean, there are great movies about World War II, but there are too many movies about World War II. And World War I,
II also just lends itself to a lot less ambiguity.
That's part of the problem. It's a clear.
But World War I is the deeper well of ambiguity.
And I like hearing about the Middle Eastern campaigns. It reminds you, yes, there was a war in other parts. It wasn't just trench warfare in France and Germany. There were other parts of the war. And it reminds me of a remarkable novel that has never been filmed called Green Mantle. I have to look up who the author is. You have probably heard of the prequel to it, John Buchan.
Indeed.
It's part of a series that began with a little book called The 39 Steps. And it is the sequel to The 39 Steps. And it's about Germany's attempt to start an Arab revolt on their terms by promoting a guy who's allegedly a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. So it's like kind of a great spy thriller adventure novel. And when I watched Lawrence of Arabia is rather more complicated, based on actual things that happened. But I wish someone would film Green Mantle, and this is the closest really I get to it, is just by watching this film over and over again. I don't know, 39 Steps has been filmed at least once, probably a couple of times. There are 4 other books in that series. So, screenwriters get at it, please.
Oh, they're not going to do that. They're too busy writing their own screenplays about trauma.
No, I don't know.
The state of modern filmmaking. Let's not talk about that. We're focusing on the positive.
Well, I think, yeah, well, okay. I think I've run out of things to say, maybe.
I mean, to be honest, we could talk about this movie for the duration of the movie if we wanted to, but this is a podcast and we have rules. So I think this is as good a time as any to ask, did I actually like this movie or not?
Right. Do I need to ask you that? Did you like this movie?
I asked you, did I like this movie or not?
I don't, yeah. I can't really predict with you, Mandy. As I know,
my work here is done. Here you go. I'll end the suspense.
Ah, very nice. Okay, 4.5. That's acceptable.
Okay, so here's the thing.
If it had been less than that, I probably would have stopped the conversation now and left you.
Here's the thing. It's a great movie. I don't think anybody. Well, I'm sure there are people who deny that it's a great movie, but I don't think we need to know those people, among other things. If I had seen this in a movie theater, I think I probably would have given it 5 stars. I also feel very strongly that even though the movie theater experience for a lot of movies can be very important, I do feel strongly that movies need to be able to exist outside of movie theaters as well, because it is very possible I will never get the chance to see it in a movie theater. I think it drops off a tiny bit after the intermission. I can't even really put my finger on what it was that happened that lost me. And no, that's a lie. I think I can. It gets a little too talky in the second act, I think. And this is not a movie that I'm going to remember, even though a lot of the dialogue is very good and very poetic and very funny. This is not a movie that I'm going to remember for its dialogue. This is a movie that I'm going to remember for those sequences in the desert and for Peter O'Toole's cobalt blue eyes.
It's very strange because Robert Bolt, while writing the screenplay, this guy who wrote Man for All Seasons.
Man for All Seasons, yeah.
Nabbed another Best Picture Oscar.
Oscars just freaking loved Robert Bolt.
I like Robert Bolt. I don't blame them.
He's a great playwright and screenwriter.
I will not say that the dialogue is definitely not the first thing that I think about when I think of Lawrence of Arabia, but to call the second half talky. I mean, I think the whole film is talky. But the second half is the exploding trains. And that's what I associate with the second half is the action.
No, I'm not sure I agree. There's dialogue, certainly, and it's a 3-hour and 42-minute movie. There is more dialogue in the movie than there is in most movies, just by virtue of that. but I think more of the story is driven forward by talking after the intermission. And it's not even that I don't like that. It's just that I think it is very slightly weaker than when it is mostly driven by bouncy camels.
Oh, that's fair. A lot of these giant films kind of slouch off a little bit in their second half.
I'm glad you forced me to watch this finally.
I'm glad that you did, because I would have hated, well, you know what? I would have hated to recommend a film that I expected you to like and you didn't. It's different when I assign a film I expect you to hate and you do hate it. I'm glad you met my expectations. I was a little nervous because it is, it's quite long, and my impression while rewatching it is that it had less action than I remember, and the action is less spectacular. And its portrayal of the campaign is much more simplistic than I remembered.
Here's
and
what
maybe
I would
that
say.
was through yes.
If this movie had been 150 to 170 minutes, it would have been too long. At 217 minutes, it is a good length.
Okay. I do have a final question for you.
Yes.
Since we have not mentioned the director of this film, it's David Lean, who is the director of many notable films.
Yes, Mr. Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yes, have you seen Bridge on the River Kwai?
I have seen Bridge on the River Kwai.
That's good. It's important because I know some people are like, oh, Bridge. I was that way too until I saw it. Just would like to advertise if you've not seen Bridge on the River Kwai because you don't think you can make an exciting movie about building a bridge. Well, you're wrong. So it is.
I will say, after seeing this, I know there's a little bit of contention among people who have seen both. I think I am slightly on Team Lawrence over Team Bridge.
Oh, good. You're on my team then. That's a hard pick because that's a real adventure movie.
I have very few bad things to say about Bridge on the River Kwai, but this one just speaks to me a little bit more.
Bridge on the River Kwai, it's a true adventure movie because you have the thing they don't tell you about is the guy who escaped from the camp is trying to go back to prevent the bridge from being completed. And what a great adventure tale that is, and what a nail biter the conclusion is. Unlike this film, which
is.
My wife and I were both screaming at the screen, by the end of that. And there's also a great shot where you see like more bats than you'll ever see in your entire lifetime. Just taking off.
There are contrasts here. Bridge on the River Kwai is a great movie that backloads its best material. Lawrence of Arabia is a great movie that front loads its best material.
Okay, I won't fight that. It's hard to say when both films are consistently excellent, which no. But that's all I have to say about David Lean. Just making sure that we get his name out there. Yes,
very good. Okay, well, thank you for this movie, Gavin. We'll see if my next month's co-host, whoever that is this nice to me. Spoiler alert, probably not. And in the meantime, if this is your first time with us, let me remind you that we also have other weekly podcasts and reviews and columns on the site for you to go and check out. And if you have not yet signed up to support us on Patreon and are thinking about doing so, let me give you this little push to send you over the edge into giving us your hard-earned money. We love you, and we will hear from you, and you will hear from us next time.